Welcome back, everybody, to the Inside Texas post press conference reaction Thursday. Steve Sarkisian Zoom. This time joined by Justin Wells. Joe is making his way down to Mississippi for that game in Starkville. Before we get into it, of course, make sure you're going over to Inside Texas. It's the best place to get all your Texas Longhorn news, from recruiting, which Justin's amazing at, to analysis, beat reporting from Joe and I, everything in between about the Texas Longhorns. It's the best time to join with the football season, really getting through the hardest part of the year and into a pretty interesting time going forward with Vanderbilt, Georgia. But first, let's talk about Mississippi State, Justin, and what Steve Sarkisian said. And I think the first thing that sticks out to me and to a lot of fans with this game is the likely return of C.J. Baxter being listed as probable in last night's report. The way Sarkisian talks about him, he's going to be playing in this game. But he talked about the relationship he has with other players on the team, as well as just what it means to have a successful game for Baxter. But first of all, Justin, what struck you about what Baxter does for the Texas team, for Wisner and his quarterback and his offensive line?
Right now, C.J. Baxter's best value is on the sideline and in the locker room. Like, he's a leader in this program. Just because you may not be the leading scorer on the team or the most popular guy or the All-American doesn't mean you're not one of the leaders. C.J. Baxter has been one of those guys, tried and true for the last few years, even when he hasn't been able to play much. And I think that's a boost for the team morale, because they really like C4. That's a kid that – and not just that, but it's also a little bit of a boost for the offense. Now, I don't know how much Baxter can make a difference right now. Like, he was asked if he's on a pitch count. Well, relatively, yeah, he probably is. Sark, I believe Sark said, don't expect something like a 20-carry game out of CJ. But I think it helps morale. I think it helps Trey Wisner take some of that load off of his back. And it's just one of those things. Again, these players really like CJ. That they always have. He's a joy to be around. He was fun to cover in recruiting. He's always got a big smile. He wants to be back on that field, guys, more than anyone else. Trust me on this. In a soft tissue injury, it's just so hit and miss sometimes with the way it's handled. But I think there was a little bit of excitement in his voice when he got to see him practice this week. And that's been the biggest thing. And our Eric Nalene reported that earlier this week, where CJ, hey, he's popping pads. He's back at practice. That was noticeable. But just the fact that he's such a locker room guy, he's so good for the team morale, and he's good for Trey Wisner and can maybe help out a little bit on the offense, was my takeaway.
Yeah, and you think about this team from just 2 years ago. Obviously, Baxter's not played a ton of football, especially not in the last 2 years, but how many guys in this offense were starting week 1, week 2, week 3 in 2023? It's just him and DJ Campbell. So, of course, he's going to be someone that can shed some pretty important experience. Someone like, I think of a Christian Clark or a James Simon, who may get a chance to get some run in this game. We'll see. Yeah. But those are guys that could really use that leadership. And Sarkisian made a point of saying it's going to mean a lot to him not to be in street clothes anymore. You can tell that's something they wear. Just putting on the uniform's a little different to be able to be a leader in that group. And so that's an important part to have Baxter back, of course, with the pass blocking is something that Sarkisian also addressed. But what we're also thinking about the pass as well is this game last year, because that was one of the true, like, welcome to Arch Manning moments. Was, they struggled a little bit in the first half. I think they were only up 8 at halftime, but really in the second half, Manning found his stride and the Longhorns ran away with it. A lot of different stuff, though, from this team, whether it be Sarkisian's own offense or what Mississippi State is pulling out. What did you most take away from what Sarkisian was talking about last year's game compared to this one?
Well, when I was doing how to watch this week, that was the first thing that stuck out. Hey, Texas Arch faced these guys last year. We've got a repeat opponent here. The difference is, honestly, Sark was pretty candid. He said there's a lot of different players. He said that this is a completely different team, without him saying we've had to completely overhaul the offensive line and the new quarterback and new receivers. He's pretty judicious with his words, but he understood that this was just a different team, that Mississippi State I think is better this year than they were last year. He did note one play that's the one play that stuck out to me. I went back and thought about it. Like, Arch had a good game last year, but it wasn't great. And that first half was a little bit nail-biting, because you just didn't know. I want to say that may have been the game, or maybe before, where he had Jonte Cook. He had a big-time play drawn up for Cook that wound up dropping the ball, and so they just couldn't move the ball that well. And then he throws that seam on that hot route from a zero blitz to DeAndre Moore, a dime for a touchdown. Yeah. And you saw the lights click on. You saw all the fans go, there's Arch Manning. That honestly may fueled the fans' support behind him, talking about how they needed to bench Quinn Ewers and Texas would actually win the title if Arch was the guy. It's a lot different. It's a lot different, especially in Austin. And granted, now they're going there, and we don't hear many cowbells at DKR. You hear plenty of them around the hill country. You just don't hear much of them, and around East Texas too. You just don't hear much of them in Austin. You're going to hear 40,000 of them at Starkville. That's going to be a major difference. But he made sure to emphasize, at least my takeaway, he made sure to emphasize, guys, this is a different team without having to scream, we don't have the same O-line we had last year.
Yeah, and it made the point as well on Mississippi State side that their defense is better. It's more aggressive, especially in the back end. Got probably 2 NFL guys there. And then that offense, they didn't play Blake Shapen last year. Brennan Thompson wasn't on the team. Anthony Evans, Fluff Bothwell. A lot of new faces for them to go up against. And
good point.
It's just not the same Mississippi State as last year. But something that Sarkisian also touched on, he was originally asked about the opening script of the games, why it struggled. Something struggled a lot in the Sarkisian era. And he kind of used that as a chance to both make an analogy about the rest of his team and just the offense in general. But talking about his grandma's Christmas tree, Justin, explain this one for our fans.
Yeah, so the opening scripts thing kind of went into another talk about fixing the offense. It's almost like I think Sark has it on the back of his mind, maybe. But he did get festive on us. He started talking about, and we have a rule in my house: we don't talk about Christmas till the day after Thanksgiving. Sark just broke that rule. But it was really a neat analogy. He described it as, you put all the Christmas ornaments together, you get the tree all dolled up, you plug it in, and then there's that one light. It's Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. You got that one light, and you can't stop focusing on that one because everything else is working, but you got to get that one right. And when you go and you fix that one, then you find another one. And it's another one, it's flickering, and then you're focused on that. And then you got to try to fix that. That was kind of his way of saying, this is kind of how I'm dealing with the offense right now. We got a lot of guys, 10 guys are doing the right thing on a regular basis, but then there's one little light that just flickers, that just misses the block or misses the assignment or misses the route or misses the cutback or, things of that sort. And so, again, Sark has a good way, I think, a lot of times of making things relatable when he was talking about it. It was, and like you said, it was the question was surrounded by like having that opening script, but I don't think so. Just his response doesn't tell me he's worried about the opening script. It tells me he's worried about the offense. He's worried about the one little thing each week. And
it's a culmination of, here's the opening scripts, that's a problem, but what about coming out of halftime? That's not an opening script, but it's got its own idea of that. He needs to make sure that's as well. But also just personnel-wise, do I have the right 5 on the offensive line? And when I do feel like I have the right 5, is the running back hitting the right hole? Is the wide receiver completing his route or finding the Rasad? There's so many different things that he has to deal with on the offense. And that's why, fair criticism for what's gone on this year, but also not going to say he's not trying behind the scenes. You mentioned the cowbells a little earlier, and quickly he did address it, that they're going to be funneling in the noise. But Justin, what do you think it's actually going to take for these players to overcome, and specifically the focus point that Sark was saying, that these players need to be focused for this game?
When you rep your team, don't stop at the jersey. Dollar Shave Club's collegiate razor handles combine grooming with glory, letting students, grads, and fans show their school spirit and style. From the sink to the stadium, shave with school pride. Visit dollarshaveclub.com today and grab your college razor handle and hook 'em.
Take the crowd out of it.
Yeah.
Don't get down 10-0 in the first quarter, because those things get louder. They don't get more quiet. You can pump in as much noise as you want. It never compares to the atmosphere. And I think these guys are learning that. And this is their second year in the SEC, but this is their first year going to these other places for the first time.
Yeah.
And so, and he talked about how each place in the SEC kind of has their own niche, their own little thing, which makes this conference so traditional and so fascinating and unique. But pumping in the noise, I think, might help a little. The truth is, take the crowd out. You don't want to deal with cowbells? Send them guys to the Dairy Barn by the third quarter. Get you a 3-touchdown lead. Take them mentally, those fans mentally, out of the game. Because it's just like Kentucky, and it's going to be just like Florida in a sense. The longer you let that home team in, the harder it's going to be to put them away, and the louder that noise is going to be. And so, it could also be a metaphor for distractions in the game right now. They haven't played a home game. They won't play a home game in the month of October. You got to keep guys laser focused week to week going on these roads, on the road. Hey, the beauty is the defense travels. When you get on a flight, you can put the defense in a bag and you can travel. And so I like that. You're going to hear Jeff Levy. Jeff Levy's going to be saying, I need some more cowbell. But look, if the ideal start for Texas and Sark is a strong start, get on the board early, get some drives put together, get some confidence put together, and get that crowd taken out as early as possible. You let them hang around, we're going to have another game like Kentucky.
Definitely. And last point here, a really interesting talking point that I didn't really expect to hear him note on, but spend some time talking about just some of the recent news around gambling. The NCAA has just made it legal for players to bet on games at the pro level, and as well as the NBA just had 2 players get completely suspended and arrested actually for dealing with some home poker games. So as someone posed the question, he didn't know about the NBA's aspect of it, but he had quite a strong take about letting these college athletes have access to gambling.
He has, and we've heard him say this before, but my goodness, you want to get him on a pulpit, this is the subject to do it. And that's the beauty of being on the Texas beat. There's always 1 or 2 guys in there that are going to ask the most random questions. It's the most fire we saw out of Sark in this 20-30 minutes that we had him earlier today. He is very against this letting college kids gamble for great reasons. It's not just the gambling. He's like, look, we're giving them money, a lot of money, and now we're telling them here's the way to gamble it. Like, it just feels so hypocritical. It's negative. It's not a good thing. And I can say this, listening to Sark talk about how much he doesn't like kids, getting into that realm of that, because I believe he said, they'll go for a pro team or whatnot. But what happens when they start dabbling with college? They're not. Where's the line? Where's the boundary? Because whatever it is, it's going to get crossed. It's going to get pushed. He was really adamant. Like, this was the most animated we had him today when talking about this. He pretty much let it known he does not like that. And I agree with him, for what it's worth. When this thing came out, I want to say it was about a month or so ago, it was like, wow, you really going to let actual players do this after what you did to Iowa State, after what you did to some of these schools that have had these issues with these players and these problems. And so at the end of the day, he was adamant that he is anti-gets that, which, you know what that tells me? They talk about that a lot within the program. Do you remember, I think it was last year or year before last, I think it was last year, David Benda got asked in the Monday post press conference media availabilities. David was a regular. He's a joy, a complete delight. They asked him about something about the spread of this game or the over-under. I can't quite remember. And his face said it all. I mean, his eyes lit up, and he's like, what does that mean? Like, he didn't understand the lingo. And they're like, well, it's gambling. He goes, whoa.
I'd say
sin. He's like, I don't know anything about gambling. And he really didn't. Like, you can tell David's an honest kid. He really didn't. That right there told me Sark has that conversation with these guys. Yeah. The way Sark spoke about it today just emphasized that.
Yeah, really interesting piece from sometimes an otherwise uneventful press conference that made it an interesting one to go and read up on it over at Inside Texas. I've already posted the full transcription of that there, and you're going to get articles from Justin and I about this and the game going forward. It's the best place to go for your Texas Longhorn news. The football season, we're really hitting that stride of every game is the national championship, and Longhorns are going to need to play like that on Saturday to take down the Mississippi State Bulldogs in Stark Vegas. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Justin, Connor, behind the scenes. I've been Evan Veith with Inside Texas. We'll see you next time.